Episode 552 of the Soul Not For Sale podcast. Coach Colin here. We're getting right into it. It's Joe Rogan, and someone I always love watching, always love listening to. So full of information. Dave Smith. Right now, they're talking about a situation that happened with Vivek, a situation that happened with him while he was on CNN. He's been questioning 9/11, but not in the way that Alex Jones would or anybody else. He's been questioning it with some facts. And, you know, anytime you push against any narrative, CNN will be one of the first to try and smear you. But Vivek does not stand down from these type of things. He does not back away from these type of things. So he actually sits down and talks with a CNN anchor and handles her very well, if I say so myself. And then Joe Rogan and Dave Smith call out the whole thing and point out where she is using things out of context. She is trying to trap him in certain verbal, you know, the little verbal combating that they do to try and trap you. You know, say you said something that you didn't actually say. So first I'm going to play the interview with Vivek and Miss Collins, I believe her name is. 2 L's, so she spells it wrong. No relation. I'm going to play that for you first. And then I'm going to play Joe Rogan and Dave Smith talking about the whole thing, just so you have some context. Let's get into that. Before I do, of course, I have to show you guys the store. It is IamCoachColin.com, where you can get all your Soul Not For Sale merch. We have, of course, the Soul Not For Sale t-shirt. But for some of you, it's getting to the point where you got to start looking at those hoodies. Sorry to say it. I'm sorry. And we got the certified pure blood tee for those of you that have survived the pandemic. Unscathed, untainted. And again, please stay strong, because over the next 6 months, you will be tested again. And we have the Public Enemy #1 shirt. Google the World Economic Forum. You will surely understand why I've branded this man as Public Enemy #1. And we have the newest Try That in a Small Town line that has just come out. Hoodies, t-shirts, tank tops, whatever you need. All of that is available on IamCoachColin.com. And if you want 10% off, no problem. I got you. All you got to do is put in the discount code IamCoachColin. All capital letters, all one word, 1 L in the name Colin, and that gets you 10% off. And if you've already done that with us, thank you, thank you, thank you. I am out of breath. Let's get into this clip. Let's do this one first. Flip it over here. Boom. Let's go.
A report in the Atlantic that you gave an interview to, you said, quote, "I think it is legitimate to say how many federal agents were on the planes that hit the Twin Towers. Maybe the answer is 0. It probably is 0 for all I know, right? I have no reason to think it was anything other than 0. But if we're doing a comprehensive assessment of what happened on 9/11, we have a 9/11 commission. Absolutely, there should be an answer the public knows the answer to." Explain to me what you meant there.
This is really, it's funny. I mean, the Atlantic is playing the same game as CNN. It's funny. What I said is, on January 6th, I do believe that there were many federal agents in the field, and we deserve to know who they are. On 9/11, what I've said is that the government lied. And this is incontrovertible evidence, Kaitlan. The government lied about Saudi Arabia's involvement. There was a Saudi spy named al-Bayoumi who they lied, and the government lied, and the 9/11 Commission lied. We know that because declassified reports in 2021 revealed that al-Bayoumi was indeed. What's that?
Yeah, the report that President Biden declassified.
Yes.
But your quote here, are you telling me that the quote
20
is wrong
years later,
here?
yeah.
But are you telling me that your quote is wrong here because it says how many federal agents were on the planes at the Twin Towers?
Yeah, when I actually, and this is just lifting the curtain on how media works again, I asked that reporter to send the recording because it was on the record. He refused to do it. But we had a free-flowing conversation. The truth is there are lies the government has told about 9/11, but it's not the ones that somebody put in my mouth. It's the one that I articulated, which is that Saudi Arabia, absolutely, their intelligence was involved in 9/11. And that's a difficult thing you're not supposed to say. The facts back that up. Separately, as it relates to January 6th, same story all over again. There were federal agents in the field. I think they've lied about how many there were. And we, the people, deserve the truth, despite the layers of distortion that exist in the media to prevent us from getting it.
You're saying that you were misquoted here. So we will take you at your word. Yes. You're saying that you were misquoted here. But you were asked another time recently about whether or not 9/11 was an inside job. This is what your response was.
9/11 inside job or exactly how the government tells us?
I don't believe the government has told us the truth. Again, I'm driven by evidence and data. what I've seen in the last several years is we have to be skeptical of what the government does tell us. I haven't seen evidence to the contrary, but do I believe everything the government told us about it? Absolutely not.
Ask
Do
two
I believe
questions.
the 9/11 Commission? Absolutely not.
I mean, Vivek, I think people look at those comments. They look at what you said in the Atlantic, which you say you were misquoted. They look at comments that you've made about the Federal Reserve adding zeros to media companies' bank accounts. And I mean, it looks like you're floating conspiracy theories with this defense of I'm just asking questions.
Well, when you actually quote me, those are my words, and I stand by them. So somebody else quoting me, putting words in my mouth, I have a problem with. But those words I stand by. You want to know why? Because we literally know the FBI, the 9/11 Commission, the U.S. government on down told us specifically that Saudi Arabia had no involvement. 20 plus years later, quietly declassifying documents showing that not only did Saudi Arabia have involvement, it was a Saudi intelligence agent that received two of those terrorists that crashed planes on 9/11, killing
But the
Americans
question was, is
on
9/11
American
an
soil.
inside
And
job?
our
And you
government
didn't
lied
say
about it.
no.
Caitlin,
That's what
you
I
just
think people are
Caitlin, you
looking at.
Caitlin, you know what's really funny? You literally just played that, and you could play it for your audience again. He said, or do you believe everything the government has told us? And my answer was, I do not believe everything the government has told us,
But you see
because
the
they
point.
lied.
The point is
and
that
I know
it leaves
this game
the door
comes up,
open.
Caitlin,
It's
every
not
time
a
there's
game.
an outsider
it
who
leaves
comes
the door
in.
open, Vivek. It leaves the door open, and someone who's a
Caitlin,
9/11 truther
we
looks
have a
at that and
government that
says, that's
systematically
exactly what I
lies.
believe. You
That
think the
was a-
government's
that was
lying
a
about
comedian
9/11?
I think the government has systematically and for a very long time lied about 9/11. And I think I'm the
What
only
part
presidential
exactly
candidate
are they
who's told us
lying
the
about?
truth. Saudi Arabia's involvement. It is absolutely true.
But you don't
that
think
Saudi
that
Arabia
9/11 was an inside job,
involved in 9/11.
correct?
Of course not. And I've never said it. But the
But
media
that's a pretty
filters do
simple
create
answer.
a lot of
It's not
falsehoods.
a media filter.
but
You have to
that's the
stop
truth.
blaming the media. I'm asking you about comments that you have made.
And I'm telling you that the comments I made, the ones you just played, are indeed what I believe, which was not that 9/11 was an inside job, but that Saudi Arabia absolutely was involved, and our government for 20 years lied to the American people about it.
There was an entire
That is
9/11
hard
Commission
fact,
report
actually.
on this.
Yes, and it lied, and it was false. And in fact, you know where that's coming out, Caitlin? There's now a case, a federal case in the Southern District of New York, where the government of Saudi Arabia is being sued by victims of families.
the
That's why
families,
this is
yes.
resurfacing itself. It is relevant, and it turns
But there's
out
a difference
in
in
those
asking
declassified
questions
documents
about Saudi
that the government
Arabia's
lied.
involvement and the government's involvement, and then pushing this idea that whenever what your comment about who was on the plane and then was 9/11 an inside job where you did not say no earlier. That's why it's important to clarify those comments, because otherwise it feels like you're towing the line when it comes to conspiracy theories.
Caitlin, I am guilty as charged that I do not follow the establishment super PAC donor-approved script on these questions, but I am speaking truth, grounded in fact, at every step of the way, and that's what's really elicited something of an anaphylactic reaction of the kind we saw in 2016 against a different candidate. But this time I'm going to be grounded in principles and conviction, not just vengeance and grievance, which is exactly
you say you're
how we
grounded
will
in evidence.
reunite
That's
this
just
country.
simply what we were asking for. But Vivek Ramaswamy, we'll have to leave it there. Thanks so much for your time tonight.
That was amazing. That was amazing. Do you see? You see the issue there, that he wouldn't just. He's leaving the door open. It's almost like the whole narrative of it's not enough to just not be racist nowadays. You have to be anti-racist, you know? Like that whole thing. You know, if you're a white person, it's not enough that you're not racist. You have to be an ally. And it's not enough that you're an ally to people of color. You also have to have some self-hatred for what you've done. And it's not what you've done, what your ancestors have done, maybe, because we don't even know who your ancestors. It's this whole narrative that they push so hard, and if you go against it at all and ask any type of questions, now all of a sudden you're toting the line towards conspiracy. Keep in mind that he brought up Jan 6th. He talked about the federal agents, and that's not something she was willing to touch on. That's not something she was willing to discuss. You notice that? She was not willing to discuss that whatsoever, because if she would watch this channel, if you know her, give her a link. But if she would watch this channel, or if she'd watch Tucker Carlson, which I'm sure no one in CNN is willing to do, she would know there were agents in the crowd. There were. Not for nefarious reasons. It's because Stephen A's son even said he was told there was domestic terrorists who came to that event, so there had to be agents there to watch those people. That alone tells you that there were some agents there. Now, what they were doing there, what their intentions were there, No, I have no idea. I couldn't tell you. But there was agents there. And Vivek is right. We should be able to know who they were. Unless they're deep inside of some organization, or, you know, they're undercover, things of that nature. Of course, you can't know that. That'll put them and their families in danger. But if they were just there to watch these gentlemen, if they were just there to make sure things were okay, we 100% should know who they were. But again, if you watch Tucker Carlson talk to Stephen A. Sund, you will see by what he says, because he's not in a conspiracy. He's just talking about facts and how things work in the departments. He knows a lot about it. He's been at this job for a long time. He only resigned after Jan 6th, like Jan 9th or something like that. So there were agents there. And it's just something that they're not willing to talk about. But I just wanted to show you guys that clip just so you have context about what Dave and Joe are about to be talking about. And also so you'll raise those questions yourself and look deeper into that. But let's get into some more stuff here. Let's go.
We were talking about that Vivek interview, which is very interesting, where this woman on CNN, that same woman that did the town hall thing with Trump, what's her name? Kaitlan?
Yeah, I don't know.
Collins?
I know who you're talking about.
She was trying to get him to discuss certain things in a way that would look preposterous. And she was talking about 9/11. And like you said, that the government lied to us about 9/11. Like, what? Like, would you think the government was involved in 9/11? He's like, no. What I said was that the government lied to us about 9/11 because the Saudis were involved and they knew they were involved. And she kind of glossed over that and was saying something in the lines of, don't you think that you saying that the government lied to us about 9/11 supports baseless conspiracy theories? You know, like, supports the idea that the government orchestrated. Like, that's when you want to put on the full tinfoil hat with the fucking chin strap, you say the government organized and designed 9/11. There was bombs in the building. They knew it was all happening. They detonated Tower 7. Like, you got to go full hat. And so she's trying to bring him into full conspiracy tinfoil hat. And he's going, no, that's not what I said. And he said something that's factual. And she just sort of like pretended it didn't get said and kept, I mean, that's a real fucking issue. They lied about whether or not Saudi Arabia was involved.
It's one of the biggest scandals in the history of the United States of America. It was like the biggest terrorist attack on our soil, and the government lied about what had happened and who was involved with it. And by the way, continued propping up that regime to this day. Continued like funding and doing business with the same government that had high-level people involved in the attack. And they knew it and suppressed that from the American people, because it would have been, you know, if you put yourself back in that time, it would have been such an outrage if Americans had known. And in fact, one of the first things George W. Bush did immediately after 9/11, even when all the flights were grounded, was get high-level Saudis out of the country. Just fly them out of the country. And this is all factual. Like, this happened. It's not disputed.
Including members of bin Laden's family.
Yeah.
The whole thing is so wild. And it doesn't get discussed. They keep going back to the company narrative. What's the ideological left narrative? The left narrative is anybody who questions 9/11 is a nutter. And you're a nutter, and you're trying to run for president. And he does a very good job of, she repeats the question, he repeats the answer. She repeats the question, he repeats the answer. And she's trying to catch him in this. And it's like, see if you can find that.
So I'm looking it up, and what I'm seeing online is that the story has turned a little bit, that The Atlantic has posted audio from the interview.
He was asking for that audio.
Yeah, it says they released it, and it says The Atlantic did not put any words in his mouth. I'm trying to find the audio so we could play it, but it's behind a paywall.
So he was saying that they put words in his mouth?
Yeah, but then what I'm also seeing then in the Daily Beast article is that despite them releasing the audio, it says Ramaswamy's campaign somehow declared victory. So they're saying I guess they're saying he said it, but his team is also saying it's still been taken out of context.
But what are they claiming that he said?
I'm trying to find the transcript, and I haven't gotten that far. It's behind a paywall again. So
let's listen to his interview on CNN. Because the things that it's interesting, like, we'll figure this out. Why is it not giving you any volume?
Well, it's not the interview yet.
It's not? What's
it's
that?
Just her talking.
Oh, I see.
And and this is just lifting the curtain on how media works again. I asked that reporter to send the recording because it was on the record. He refused to do it. But we had a free-flowing conversation.
After our interview, The Atlantic released the audio, more than 4 minutes of it, actually. And here is the part with that quote that was in question.
What is the truth about January 6th?
I don't know, but we can handle it. Whatever it is, we can handle it.
But what
Government
is it?
agents, how many government agents were in the field? Right?
You mean like entrapment?
Yeah. Absolutely. Why can the government not be transparent about something that we're using? Terrorists, or the kind of tactics used by terrorists, if we find that there are hundreds of our own in the ranks of the day that they were, I mean,
Well, there's a difference between entrapment and a difference between a law enforcement agent identifying it.
I think it is legitimate to say how many federal agents were on the planes that hit the Twin Towers. Like, I think we want, maybe the answer is zero, probably a zero for all I know, right? I have no reason to think it was anything other than zero. But if we're doing a comprehensive assessment of what happened on 9/11, we have a 9/11 commission. Absolutely, that should be an answer the public knows the answer to.
No.
Okay.
Vivek did nothing wrong.
There's nothing.
There's literally nothing wrong with what he said there.
But that's like, we're doing this in comparison to January 6th. So we do want to know how many federal agents were involved in January 6th. And imagine if there was actually federal agents that were involved on the planes in 9/11. He didn't say there were.
No, he specifically said zero. I'm sure it was zero.
I'm sure
but we'd want to know.
Right.
But we'd want to know. And he's saying if you're claiming this was an act of terrorism, just like that was an act of terrorism, then okay, let's have a commission. Let's have a report. Let's know how many federal agents there were. And so far, I mean, by the way, it's crazy they try to spin this.
Does she keep going? Can I hear what her take on that is?
Yeah, there's still another minute on this video.
Please play the rest of it.
Okay.
I want to hear what she has to say about this.
Herself. He was, in fact, quoted accurately. In an email to CNN after that audio was published, his spokesperson said, the audio clearly demonstrates that Vivek was taken badly out of context, and even this small snippet proves that. We continue to encourage The Atlantic to release more of the recording rather than their carefully selected snippet so that the full context and reality is exposed. I should note that spokesperson did not explain how he was supposedly taken out of context. The reality is that Vivek Ramaswamy is running to be president of the United States. He will be on that debate stage tomorrow night. And he says this is a central message to his campaign.
This campaign is founded on the truth.
The truth. We will not back down from the truth. We stand for the truth.
I'm a patriot who speaks the truth.
Well, the truth is, he did say it. The quote was accurate, and it is on tape. And yes, this is how the media works. You get quoted for things you say accurately.
Yeah, but that is still out of context. It's clearly out of context. Otherwise, they would have released the entire recording.
I know, and it's this weird thing where they brag about how, like, but you know what? The Atlantic did release 4 minutes of audio. Like, well, why not just release the whole thing?
Right, but
like,
this was after he had said they didn't release it because they hadn't.
Right.
So he's asking for the copy of it. They would not give it to him. And then they released this small snippet that is, again, taken out of context.
And it's not as if anywhere in there he says, I believe there were federal agents in on January 6th.
He's probably zero.
Well, on 9/11 he said it's probably zero, but he said he's asking the question about January 6th. But he never even said, I believe January 6th was an inside job. He said, like, it seems like entrapment. Like, that's kind of what it seems like, and we have a right to ask these questions. Yeah, Vivek's a very sharp guy. I had him on my podcast. He's a very impressive guy. He's very smart. And he's just 100% right here. Ray, the FBI director, was asked.
So that's basically it with that. CNN getting caught doing nonsense once again, as always, especially with that Collins lady. She's very much a nasty lady, as Trump once put it in the town hall meeting. A nasty lady. Honestly, again, I'll say it again. She didn't want to talk about the Jan 6th allegation of agents being in the crowd, because to feed any fire to that narrative, especially as Tucker's feeding fire to that narrative and other people online, including myself, are questioning that. She can't go into that. But what she can do, this is what was going on. And obviously, I'm sure you can realize by all of this breakdown, but she's focusing on the thing that can make him look crazy. The thing that can make him look, that can discredit him. That can make him in the ranks of Alex Jones, that can put him in the ranks of, like Joe put it, a nutter. And it's just, it's a very slick game they play. And I think, in my opinion, Vivek is laughing because he's of that age. He's only just turned 38 years old. He's of that age group where he can look at this and go, oh, this is like this weird game you're playing. Like somebody who's in their 60s would may get angry. But when you're younger, your BS meter is just off the charts when it comes to this stuff, because this is the type of stuff that you stopped watching. He's around my age. He's around my age. If he's anything like me, probably stopped watching mainstream media 20 years ago. And when you get exposed to it after so long, you're just like, what game are you playing? I don't understand. Like, what is, like, it's so apparent, and it's a little silly. And I'm not saying that the older people who watch this, I'm not saying you guys don't know, but when you're younger, it's blaringly apparent. It's like just red flashing lights everywhere. Like, it's nuts. So very interesting that they're trying to do that to him. Very interesting that they're trying to, at least in that conversation, deflect away from questions about Jan 6th. It's very, very interesting. But As you guys know, maybe you don't know, Vivek was in the GOP debates, and I think they were also doing that in preparation for him being at the debates to try and bring his numbers down a little bit more, because he does seem like he's the front runner. Well, not front runner, because under Trump, of course, but beyond everybody else, it seems like he's going to be head and shoulders above everybody. The only person really to jump over is DeSantis, and it seems like he's done that already. Sharp guy, very sharp guy. Like the video if you haven't liked it already. Subscribe if you haven't subscribed already. We're making 1 to 3 videos a day. I don't know anybody else that's doing that. Great breakdown by Joe and Dave Smith. If you don't know about Dave Smith, he has a podcast called Part of the Problem. And again, he is chocked filled with information. Great podcaster, great comedian as well. Yeah, other than that, I'm out.